Hello, everyone, and good morning. We are still here in Indiana, I think. Yes, West Lafayette. If you didn't know, we got here about a week ago, and we have been just kind of helping out my mom and brother. She had surgery and stuff, and so we're here for a little bit. This would be our second Sabbath in a row broadcasting here, so salt on the go, I guess you could call us. So, again,
Those little packets of sprinkle salt?
yes, salt on the go. We're the little packet now, the little packet that could. So yeah, if you, again, always if you have a issue like with sound or light or video or anything, let me know. We're kind of monitoring the comments as best we can. But we are going to be doing some fun stuff today. We're going to be creating bubbles and popping them and dry ice and talking about expectations and things. But first, we would like to start off with a very abbreviated section of Brett's Bodacious Soapbox.
Brett's Bodacious Soapbox.
So back home, I mean, we have a TV. We don't really watch it unless we hook it up for a movie or something. But who has time for TV? And but here we have 3 TVs, and it's been interesting to. Usually, I get my news off of the, internet, but Mom and my brother watch CNN and all the different ones and Fox and stuff, and it doesn't matter if you're a CNNer or a Foxer or whatever. About all media has fallen into something that sort of frustrates me. News in my day, I think it's very interesting that in my day, news was not real exciting to watch. I can remember my dad watching, Walter Cronkite, and that's the way it is. And it was, news, and they didn't really spin or anything, just presented it. And nowadays, it's gotten in our entertain me mad thirst for always wanting the next exciting thing, that news has become like, reality TV. And there's so much hyperbole used and so much over the top, and the things that people say nowadays they wouldn't dream of saying 50 years ago. For instance, you hear the Republicans will say the Democrats want to destroy and they hate America. Democrats don't hate America. And the Democrats say the Republicans are going to bring about Armageddon. The Republicans are not going to bring about Armageddon. And we say this stuff over the top, and it may not seem like a big deal, but when we start making things far bigger than they really are, and we start exaggerating, it becomes like the boy who cried wolf. So when things really are Armageddon, we are so not expecting it, or we don't believe it because we've been talking about other things, In the 80s, it was awesome. I remember we started saying everything was awesome, and awesome this, awesome that. And parents would be like, awesome is not a word you should be using for your bowl of cereal. It's not an awesome bowl of cereal, And it's the same kind of point. When we start blowing things up, like, again, with hyperbole and stuff, we're really hurting ourselves, because now we're starting to create the society that we're in now, where everything has to be super big, super dramatic, super whatever to be entertaining, because even news shows now are dependent upon viewers and clicks online, and so the more dramatic and whatever we can make it, the more viewers and clicks we get. And I think we're really hurting ourselves when we do that kind of thing, because we end up living in this reality that isn't real. And that's almost, as we're gonna talk about it later, swapping truth out for half-truths, a third truths, or out-and-out lies. And we start living in those, and things get really bad. So my bodacious soapbox today, there is only one Armageddon, and it isn't here yet. And everything else is just the little stuff. And trying, especially when we're talking about the news stories and who we're going to vote for president and all this, get to the facts, get to the simplicity of reality, and try and get past the hyperbole of media reality entertainment and see what is true. So that's my bodacious soapbox for today. And now for the section you've all been waiting for, Aspen's object lesson.
Today, sublimation will be sublime. What is sublimation, you might ask? Basically, it's where an element goes from one state of being to another. A simple example would be water. As you know, at 32 degrees, water freezes and turns to ice. Ice is the solid form of water. But what happens when you put ice in the heat? It melts and goes back to its liquid form, water. And if we keep turning up the heat, water will turn into its gaseous form and evaporate. And all those changes from a solid, liquid, and to gas is sublimation. But not all elements act like water. For instance, what you can't see here is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is an integral part of our breathing process. We take in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. We take in oxygen and take out carbon dioxide. We breathe in, we breathe out, we breathe in.
Okay, I think they got it.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm dying over here.
What? Carbon dioxide, like all elements, can exist as a solid, liquid, and gas. So if we take carbon dioxide and freeze it, it becomes its solid state, which we know as dry ice. But, unlike water, when heated, it goes from solid to liquid to gas. Carbon dioxide goes from solid straight to gas. So there's some simple science behind dry ice. So instead of going deeper into the science, we're gonna have some fun with dry ice. So those are some pretty cool things you can do with dry ice. And now you know that dry ice is just carbon dioxide frozen. When was the last time that you really thought about carbon dioxide? Probably not lately, if ever. It's just so common and simple that we just don't really think about it. And it's not nearly as important as oxygen, right? But what happened when we took this simple carbon dioxide and changed its state of being from a gas to a solid and then excited it with some hot water? Really cool things. It's kind of like that with God. We may seem plain and simple to everyone else around us, and He changes our state of being and excites us with the Holy Spirit. Watch out, because really cool things are about to happen.
So that was a ton of fun. So like I said, if any of you have done any fun things with dry ice, put it in the comments. It's some experiments maybe you did. Like I'm thinking Merle, I'm sure you probably used dry ice somewhere in teaching, and so let us know what you've done. That was kind of cool. I didn't put all the specifics in there, like with the big one giant bubble, the string you saw her pulling across, we took a string and soaked it in bubble blowing soap bath and drew it across, and then where there were the little bubbles coming out, we just poured it straight onto the dry ice, and that's what kind of made things go. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think while they were having a lot of fun, I was doing laundry or something like that.
Yes.
But I watched from afar, and it did look like a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
So,
Yeah, it was. And it's interesting about how we didn't get real into it in the video, but how you look at ice and dry ice, and they're almost the same name, ice, dry ice, and they look very similar. In fact, you could put dry ice next to ice and have a hard time picking out which one was which. Yet if you treat them the same, they will not act the same.
Right. There's a lot of elements out there on the periodic table, right? Yes. Yeah. So all those elements, and there's various combinations of them and such, and yet, so we'll take water, for example, a combination of elements there. And we pretty much all know that the temperature that it freezes and it becomes ice, and the temperature that it's frozen, and then of course you start boiling the water, it just evaporates into a gas, right? So we know that, we know the truth about the H2O, most of us do, and yet dry ice, which Brett says when it's frozen, clearly, it looks very much like real ice, and you probably have a hard time picking out the difference. But what I didn't know before this was that CO2, that's what the dry ice is, and CO2 actually is never a liquid. It goes straight from being frozen into a gas. And also we can't expect it to act the same then at 72 degrees. If it did, we would all be breathing out water. Yeah. Or a liquid of some sort, right?
Yeah.
So, but take for instance, with that bowl, Aspen could have blown CO2 in that bowl for all she was worth for the whole day, and then drawn a soapy string across it, and it would never have created a bubble like that, because our hot air, we're full of it. We can expend plenty of it, and basically it will come to naught. And in comparison, well, I guess we'll just compare God to the dry ice.
Yeah.
And we can't
can't predict, again, you do ice and dry ice and they look the same, but they act differently.
Yeah.
And if you treat them the same, they will act differently, and you could look at dry and expect it to do what ice does, but it won't.
Yeah.
It can't.
And when I saw Aspen drawing that string across the bowl, I had no idea what to expect. And then I knew she was dipping it into something, but I had no idea what. And then when I saw the bubble forming, I was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. She was dipping it into soap. And for those of you watching the video, you had no idea that there was soap on that string. Probably had no idea unless you'd done that experiment yourself. So many experiences in life, God sees the whole thing, and we don't. We have no idea what when He adds that little extra something, or he may even ask us to add soap to the string, and we're just like, why? Mm-hmm. What would I do that for? It makes no sense.
Yeah. God always has a bigger picture than we do, and Because usually because of our life, we're so, finite beings, we see life right here. We can't see the big picture. And another thing I liked about this is that you expect it to act one way and it acts another. I have this fun game. One of my students, if you've ever done this with me, I put up a baseball field. I'll take the class out. I won't tell them what's going on. I'll just set up what looks to be like a baseball field. And there's home plate and first base, second base, third base, and the pitcher's mound. And I put a bat and a ball, and I divide them into teams. And I say, all right, ready and play. And they instantly start playing baseball. But what's really going on is I've set it up to look like baseball, but I've changed the rules, and I haven't told anybody. And so the way you get a strike or a hit or an out or a run is all different. And it never ceases to amaze me how long people will continue to play baseball doing the same thing over and over and over, no matter how many times it doesn't work, trying to get somebody out. They'll catch the ball in the air, and I won't call an out. And they'll be like, but I caught it. And I'm like, that's nice for you. Good that you caught the ball. And it doesn't equate to be the same thing as in baseball. They cannot break out of their preconceived idea of what should be happening and experiment and find out what really is happening. And it's an exercise in how to think outside the box, how to break out of our expectations. Just because something looks the way we think it's this and it acts differently, and we can't adapt or accept that. And that's kind of a fun little game.
Yeah. So that's false expectations, really. We expect it to work one way because we've had experience with a different thing like that, but then it doesn't work that way. And so false expectations are like a mirage, basically.
Which is what we're talking about today, false expectations.
Yes.
What a segue.
Yeah.
Hey.
And so Eve in the Garden of Eden, of course, when she was presented with that false expectation from the serpent, she believed it. She believed it because it looked so much like the truth for her. And she wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe that she could be like God.
Yeah, which is interesting that you're in the Garden of Eden. Because when Miranda said this, I thought, wow, that's kind of odd, isn't it? She's in the imagine the Garden of Eden, and yet there's still the mirage. And the mirage is like, in the desert, the water where you're thirsting to death and you want to get to the mirage because it's, a beautiful oasis. She's in the Garden of Eden, and yet Satan holds up this fake mirage oasis.
She is in a place of absolute perfection, and yet the devil twists that little truth just enough that she thinks that her life isn't quite perfect unless she has what he is offering to her. And I think many times we live our lives like that, like we feel as though we haven't arrived at our ultimate perfection. I have to wash the dishes again. Do I always have to clean the bathroom? Maybe we should just be thankful, one, we have a bathroom to clean, we have dishes to wash. I know that sounds a bit cliche, but it's true. For people who have been homeless, or when Brett was unemployed and you're staying at someone else's house, it's nice to have your own kitchen.
I'd like to modify that. Brett is unemployed, not was unemployed.
Right.
Continues to be.
In a different time.
Just putting that out there. Yes, in a different.
Right.
And one thing, we don't want to come across like your mom saying, "Well, you eat your spinach because there's starving children in Africa, and you should be thankful you have spinach."
No.
There is a truth to it, though, that being grateful and looking at things you can be grateful for dramatically changes your brain and your brain chemistry. It's scientifically proven that what they call the attitude of gratitude, but the being thankful instead of complaining.
Yeah, and I don't think you're lying to yourself at all,
no. Because
you really are fortunate to have your own bathroom, and not only one, but maybe 2 or 3. And yes, someone needs to clean them.
3. No one has 3 bathrooms. That's ludicrous. No one would ever have 3 bathrooms.
We had 3 bathrooms once.
And continuing on.
So. Anyways, we can change our attitudes about things. I finally got myself to be able to walk into the dirty bathroom and say, yes, I have a bathroom to clean, and it's, I can laugh about that when I do it, and it just elevates your mood. And
and I think it's deeper than, I think it's actually changing your perspective, which then changes your attitude.
yeah,
My perspective is, I have this, and that changes the way I think and feel about
yeah.
it.
Instead of walking into the bathroom, and go, oh, can nobody help keep
Yeah.
the bathroom clean? Do they have to let the trash can just start overflowing? Can no one ever put the toilet paper on the thing, Am I the only one who ever has to do that? Be thankful you got money to buy toilet paper.
When there is toilet paper
when
available.
there's toilet paper to be had. Yeah, so, we define our lives by whatever we think perfection is, and if it doesn't live up to that, then certainly we cannot be happy. And we use those false expectations to try to force other people into our ideas of perfection as well. And
We probably ought to, so we're talking about false expectations and stuff. I'd like to put out a definition for expectation. Expectations are premeditated disappointments. Think about that. Expectations are premeditated disappointments. We'll expound on that a little bit more here in a little bit, but imagine that. How many times have you had, I expected something from somebody and it didn't happen, and now I'm angry and sad and disappointed it didn't happen because it's what I expected to happen. And when we do expectations on people, places, and things, we're pretty much setting ourselves up for premeditated disappointment.
so we decided to talk about a couple things today. False expectations of people and false expectations of God.
Which covers most of life.
Yeah.
False expectations of everyone around us, false expectations of God, and maybe on another level or another day we'll do false expectations on ourselves,
Yeah.
because we put those on all three. And again, if you think about it, your whole life is wrapped up in those three areas: God, others, and yourself. It's all about connecting to God up, connecting out to others, and connecting in with yourself, and finding peace in those three things. And when we have false expectations, we don't have peace.
Right, and just a brief overview of both of these. When we have false expectations of people, we expect people to be like God. And yet when we have false expectations of God, we're having expectations that God will be like people.
Yeah.
And that sums up what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, and I want to, because I think it's a really good point. I used to say this in Bible class a lot, is that the only relationships we are familiar with is with other people. And that's what we operate in. And other people are flawed, and they may have different personalities and different levels of being able to connect with and da-da-da-da, but our whole existence and experience happens inside relationships with other people. And we tend to, just because it's all we know, to take those and put them on God, which is the same as treating God, dry ice, as people, ice. And we treat it the same, but God does not act and react the same way that people do. And yet, subconsciously, we put those expectations, or we put those parameters of a relationship on God because we're so used to living that way in people. And it's two different relationships. As God said, man's thoughts are not my thoughts. And
Right.
that kind of,
Right, and there's a story in the Bible, I'm pretty sure it's in Isaiah, where there's a man and he takes and he plants a tree in the forest, and it grows up, and when it gets big enough, he chops it down. And he uses part of it to build a fire to cook himself some food. Then he uses the other part of it and he builds an idol out of it.
Because this is what you do on a camping trip. I'm
And-
going to build fire, cook something, and now I'm going to make an idol.
Yeah, and then out of the same tree, no less.
Out of the
okay?
same tree.
So then out of the idol, of course, he's going to ascribe magical powers
Yes.
to the idol, right? And yet that tree, that wood, has no magical powers. Just because he believes that it does, it doesn't. And so our only hope is in God and what he can do for us. And that's realistic. Okay, that's the man taking the wood from the tree and building himself a fire and cooking his food with it. That is a realistic expectation of wood.
Yep.
But it's an unrealistic expectation to ascribe magical powers to it, that it can save us and do good things for us.
Yes. I would like to hear it as, oh, mighty wood, thank you for all wood things.
Yes. Well, and we can laugh at him, but honest to goodness, we do the same thing. We tend to ascribe magical powers to people. We expect them to heal us, to fix us, to always do good to us. Or maybe we're a bit jaded and we don't expect that, but you know.
Yeah, I remember taking if any of you out there went to academy, boarding school academy, I guess any academy. I don't know that they do it a whole lot anymore, but we used to do as a senior year, we did the wedding project, and you had to get married to somebody, you married, and had to plan your wedding, and da-da-da-da, and had to build a budget, and it was part of like preparing you for life. So if any of you guys did that, tell me in the comments what you thought of it, you know, because when I was a senior, I went in and Mickey Thurber, who is actually now part of the he's part of the Mid-America Union. And we got to choose our own occupations and whatever we wanted. So we had to go up and we'd say, this is my chosen occupation. And then he would tell us how much money we're going to make per year. And he had great fun because like my friend in front of me, he went up and he said, I am a great painter. And he said, you are a waiter who makes sidewalk chalk art. And, you know, you get $10,000 a year. And I said, I'm a rock star. And he said, you are a starving musician. You get $5,000 a year. And trying to keep us reality in check. But one of the things he talked about, and I don't know if this is true because I'm not a girl, but one of the things he said a lot of newly married couples is that there was always there was the princess or the Barbie dream house imagination that had to be destroyed before a real marriage could really take off, and that girls, especially ones that were raised in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, they would come into marriage thinking it's going to be this Barbie dream house, Prince Charming experience, and in reality it wasn't. And then there was this huge, you know, disappointment because they expect it to be the storybook and it ends up being, you know, something very different, and how they had to deal with that. But again, that's kind of I have a false expectation because it used to be that, oh, the other person's going to complete me and they are going to be responsible for my happiness, and that's completely not true.
Yeah, I was talking to someone once, another woman once, actually younger than me, but we had kids the same age, and so she was saying all she had wanted to do was grow up, get married, and have kids. Well, of course, she completed her college education and such, but she didn't want to work. She wanted to stay home and homeschool her kids and all that such. And that's exactly what she was doing. She had 4 children, and that's what she did, was homeschooling and such. And yet she said, because she had always expected that to give her so much joy. And yet by the end of the day, a lot of times, she was ready to pull her hair out because it was not giving her all the joy that she had expected. Not that she didn't love her children and not that she didn't love her husband, but somehow or other the joy that she had expected to give her was not there. And I kind of went to the other extreme on that one. I was never grown up to get married and have kids. That was not going to happen in my life. Well, turns out I did both of those things, and I had 4 children myself. But I never expected. Trust me, I have plenty of my own faults, so, you know, I'm just holding this up as a contrast. I never expected my children to fulfill me and to, I guess, like fulfill me like that, I guess, you know. I did not expect them to bring me great joy and happiness all of my life or something at the end of each day. At the end of each day, and so therefore I was not setting myself up for any kind of disappointment. Because at the end of the day, I may have pulled my hair out and gone, "Oh my word, kids!" Yeah. You know, we probably both had the same experiences, but it was our expectations going into it. Yeah. certainly we both loved our children, and probably had many of the same experiences that. But,
yeah, and here's one from the internet. Diane shared, eye-opening. Didn't realize how much things really cost, and that my partner liked different things, so we both had to adapt. And yeah, I think that's true too. As a single person, you know, when I was single, I could go to the grocery store and I could buy for the month for about $50, and I'm good. Nowadays, it ain't like that. However, had I continued to eat like that, I would be dead now.
True.
Yes, so there's pros and cons. See, yes, it costs a little more, but you're alive to enjoy it. Yeah, I you know, as a single guy, and I was eating. Oh God, I can't even believe I did this. I mean, like the frozen dinners, I was getting them because, like, oh look, that's only $3 for a whole meal, and then you never think, what do they put in there that it's only $3? You know. And yeah, so we eat much better now, but it does cost a little more.
Yeah, and yeah, taking Brett to Whole Foods is not a good idea.
No.
You know, you try to get Aspen to distract him when it comes time to, you know, for the person who's checking you out, that they say the number of how much it costs.
Yes.
Oh my! Please don't say that in front of Brett.
And Aspen like, Daddy, look, it's a bird.
I just stopped listening and just slid the card, you know.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I actually did this once. We were checking out. No, you weren't there. I must have been just me and Aspen. Anyway, she was like, that'll be, and I held my hand up. I don't want to know. And I just put the card in. I did that once.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I don't know why we're talking about this.
I don't know why.
Anyway.
False expectations.
False expectations.
You go and you expect to get something, a $3 meal, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, you expect, okay, so it's a cheap meal, but you're expecting it to be good for you somehow? Or
Yeah, and I thought, this is fine. It's meat. There's protein. It's a vegetable. I think there was like potatoes, you know. And of course, it's all frozen. It was probably all from, you know, there's like 2% real potato in there, and the rest of it's, you know, who knows what. And you eat it, and it's horrible for you, you know. And so you get these expectations. Again, back then, you think, I'm going to live forever. And, you know, the younger you are, you think the more invincible you think you are, and you know, take stupid risks, and you do things, and the truth is, we're all about as vulnerable as anybody else, you know. And if we eat a certain way and act a certain way, we're going to have the same kind of, you know, consequences. But it's, again, you know, back to marriage, it's in that relationship of what's the expectations you're putting on the other person, and back to being premeditated disappointments. And I think the biggest difference is that expectations that are not communicated or verbalized, that's what sets us up for disappointment.
Yes, we can't automatically assume that someone will know what our personal needs are, or what our idea of their being perfect is.
Right.
And so getting even with someone for their lack and our perceived lack of their perfection, then everyone gets lost, because then you're just playing the game of getting even, and nobody's knowing the truth and living out the actual truth in that. It's just your perceptions of why they and the other thing, and so you're getting even for something that probably didn't even happen.
Right. But yeah, so you know, the other ways we have false expectations or bad expectations.
Yeah, for people. And then false expectations of God is we expect God to be like people. We don't really often expect God to actually carry through on his promises and what he says he's going to do for us in the Bible.
No. Say that again.
We don't actually believe that God's going to carry through on his promises.
You hear that? We don't actually believe. I know you're sitting there going, well, I do.
Well, yes, we all say we do.
Yeah, but do you really?
Do you really act as if you believe that? Because if you're acting as if you believe that, then when Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself, get down to the nitty-gritty of that. If you won't go to church with someone because you can't stand them, then you don't love that person like you love yourself.
So like in there's an interesting story that I can't remember his name. So if you know who I'm talking about, in the comments, tell me his name. But there was a high wire balance guy who was really famous and really good way back in the day, and he used to walk across Niagara Falls from America to Canada and back, right? And people would crowd and they would come to see him do this, and he would go over, and then he would make it more difficult by, he would walk across juggling, and he would do different things. And he kept asking the crowd, do you think I can go back and forth juggling 3 balls? Yay! And he does it. And then he was like, and you've probably heard this one, it's fun. He said, do you think I can go back and cross and forth with a wheelbarrow? Yay! And he was like, do you really believe it? Yeah, you can do it. And then he said, all right, which one of you wants to get in the wheelbarrow? And of course, nobody gets in the wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
So the question is, how much do you really believe? It's easy to cheer and say, yes, I believe, and then we have to get into the wheelbarrow.
Yeah. We also say that we believe that God loves us, but we don't often act as if he's going to show us great mercy. We don't really expect the depth of his love being expressed to us to the depth that he wants to, and he does do for us. We don't often explore that. We just continue living life on the surface. A story to tell you, there's so many cliche stories, of course. We've all heard about how, God's mercy is explained by, you get pulled over by a police officer because you were speeding and you don't get a ticket. Oh, there's God's mercy for you, right? Well, I have a story that it was somewhat similar, only to a much further degree than that. I think she was about 18 years old, and she had graduated from academy, and there was a guy, I think he was just a year behind her, and she had dated him for a while and such. Well, she was still at home because she hadn't quite decided what she wanted to do for school, where she might want to go to school at, and so she was working at Starbucks that year. But we got a little ways into the school year, and her friend was still at the school. We were still in the same town. So there was going to be a play in the neighboring town, I think on a Sunday or something like that, and they wanted to go over there. Well, the problem being was that I was working, and so I couldn't take them. Another problem, don't ask me how these things happen to me, right? It just happened. Randy was 18 and she did not have her driver's license. Her friend clearly was probably about 17. He did not have his driver's license. But Randy had a car. She had a car, and it was licensed, and it was insured and such. And so I couldn't actually go get him from the school. It was a boarding school. So I called up and I checked him off, and my daughter went and picked him up. And I thought, I'm thinking, I know I shouldn't do this, but they're just taking this back road over to this other little town, and so it'll all be okay, right? And it was. They got over there all right, and the thing is, when they came out of the play, it was now dark outside. So they both get in the car, and as she's pulling out of the parking lot, she gets pulled over by a police officer because she had not turned on her lights. So this should be simple, right? She should just give them her driver's license. Well, okay, so she knows she doesn't have a driver's license, and so she's hunting through her purse, and she has a passport because she has traveled out of the country, but she doesn't have a driver's license. So she's like, I can't seem to find my driver's license. Keep in mind, Randy was a very beautiful, blonde, big blue eyes girl, and so she's like, I can't find my driver's license. Could you take my passport? Sure. So he took it, goes back to the car, and then her conscience gets the better of her. And so she decides she's going to get out of the car and tell him that she doesn't actually have a driver's license. So she gets out of the car, and he gets out of the car, and he's like, get back in the car. And she's like, but I just wanted to get back in the car. It's like, but I just wanted to get back in the car. So she gets back in the car, and he walks up to her, and she's like, I just wanted to tell you I didn't have a driver's license. He's like, all right, does he have a driver's license? Nope, he doesn't have a driver's license either. So he goes back, there's two police officers, right? He goes back and he stands outside his car and he's talking to the other police officer. He walks back over and he tells Randy, he's like, all right, he says, you know what, just drive home. Now there's mercy for you, because anybody I've ever told that story to says, you're kidding me. They should have hauled her off to jail. That is protocol for that. It would not be considered unusual punishment. It's protocol for that sort of situation.
Yeah.
And here's Randy, just let off, nothing else but all right, just drive home.
Yeah.
And that is a great mercy of God that we don't really think we're ever going to get. We don't think that maybe, yes, we say, God loves me, I know that. Do we live as though God loves me? Do we live like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to tell, like when the drama team that's going out and we do stuff, we'll do reenactments, dramatic recreations of stories from the Bible, like the woman caught in adultery and different things. And I like to tell people that you need to put yourself in the place of the people in those stories, because how Jesus reacted to those people is how he reacts to us. And so again, with like the woman caught in adultery, she was drug out, and imagine being, in that kind of sinful situation and drug out and thrown straight into the presence of God. That's got to be, one of the most dramatic, worst things that can happen to a person, is being dragged from the bed and thrown into the presence of God. And yet, how did Jesus react? And how he reacted to her is how he reacts to all of us. In the same situation, when we're confronted our sin that we bring to God, that's how he reacts to us. He didn't condemn. He didn't preach. He didn't scold. He didn't do anything. He wrote in the sand the sins of everyone else. And those who have the first, and so that response of love and care and forgiveness is not something we're used to, because all of our experiences in relationships with other people, and nobody on this earth is the same as God. Nobody on this earth has the ability to love perfectly like God.
Yeah. And another illustration of that, the woman at the well.
Yeah.
Jesus asked her for a drink of water. He asked her for something that she was perfectly capable of giving him. That was a realistic expectation. She had come to the well to draw some water, and there was Jesus sitting there. He just said, "Can I have a drink of water?"
And a lot of people make a point of this, and it's a good point, that Jesus starts an evangelistic crusade here by asking for a favor. And it's true. It's exactly what he did. He was trying to get her attention. He was trying to open her up. And he asked her for a favor to try and break down the barriers and everything. But I think it's something I haven't thought about much until you said it, was that he didn't ask her, because he could have asked her for something she couldn't do, and then he could go into, whatever point he's making.
Here's what I can do for you.
But he didn't. He's something that would have been, she was there to do anyway, and had everything she needed to do. It was something she could do.
Right, and it's something then that he was able to use as a comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can draw yourself some water. You can even do a good deed and give me, a Jewish person, because that was a Samaritan woman, you can give me some water as well. It's something that you can do. But here is what I can do for you. I can give you living water that you don't, it'd be the same as you never have to come out here and draw this water again.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the realistic expectation of what God can do. We often find it much easier because we can do it ourselves and go out and keep drawing the water ourselves. And
just a quick side note, because I have some people from Switcher Studio asking, how are you doing this? So real quick, there's one camera there. Aspen, as I point to him, go to him. So there's the one camera, is our main shot. There's another second shot over here, and that's from Miranda. There's another camera over here. It's my shot. We have two lights. I have a microphone. Miranda has a microphone. And it's all running over into an iPad that our 14-year-old daughter is running. This is how easy it is. So for those of you who are asking, that's our
what,
setup.
You don't want to lead everyone to the false expectation.
Yeah.
Your daughter's a genius?
Our daughter is a super genius. She's home from the Mint Society and working for the government. She's helping us out now. So yes. Anyway, so this is our 3-camera, 2-mic setup going in. So anyway, yes. So false expectations. Again, at the woman at the well, the woman, Jesus knew the woman expected him to ignore her, and because he was a Jew and she was a Samaritan. So there was an expectation she had, that was wrong.
Yeah, because God is never going to ignore you, whoever you are.
Right. As a matter of fact, the disciples expected that Jesus would have been ignoring her as well, and were pretty shocked when he wasn't.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times Jesus is trying to break down and just blow to bits these false expectations that people have of God. That was one of the things the entire life was like, no, you say God's like this, but I'm telling you, let me show you, he's like this. And he was trying to take away these expectations that people put on God, basically making God more like a person and more like reacting to God as he's a person, not as God. And Jesus comes back saying, no, you have no concept.
Right.
You have no idea. And I know I've said this before, I want to go back to it though. It's just that, you'll hear people say, oh, the unimaginable, unfathomable love of God, right? And we can height or imagine, nothing we can come to the love of God. Well, I want to say that, that is very true, but the reason it's true is because 99% of our experience is outside of that. Again, it's back to our relationships or with people who are fallible, sinful, they aren't God. And only God has perfect love. And so the reason I make a big deal about that is no matter what you think or feel about God, whatever it is, he is so much more and bigger than what you can actually even imagine his reaction would be like. And kind of keep that in mind when we pray to God and we bring things to God, that what we kind of tell ourselves in our heads that we think God may be thinking or something is not what God is really like. You have to go to what he tells us he's like in the Bible and live like you believe that's the truth.
Yes, he is our Father in heaven, and when we want something from our own earthly father, I'm not speaking from personal experience, but most children who want something from their earthly father, they love their daddy and they expect him to give it to them. I know Aspen expects daddy to give her whatever she asks for.
And he does.
Yes. So, she has no fear about that.
Mm-hmm.
She has an expectation, and it's relatively realistic, that he will do for her whatever he can within his human limitations. And honestly, to treat our Father God in heaven like that, to excitedly go and ask him for something, expecting him to do that for us, or something better. If Aspen asked for $10, could she not expect him to pull out 50 or 100 and so much more for her than she even asked for, or even dreamed? So instead of asking for, she asked for $10, and now he got her a year's worth of ballet lessons at the New York Ballet, and a horse, and a
ballet
car,
horse.
And
a horse that does ballet.
That's how much God loves us. But it's not about the gifts he gives us. It's about that beautiful relationship that we can have with him. After all, do we not love our earthly daddies? Whether or not they can give us a car or not.
Yeah.
So, and the more our love our fathers share with us, clearly then the more we respond to that, and vice versa.
So we must be getting close to the end.
Yes, we are. We are ending with the temptation in the wilderness.
Oh, and so one of the things we were talking about, and I was like, so if we're talking about false expectations, what's the opposite? If we're not going to have expectation, well then what should we have? And we were kicking around. I wanted to go back to the temptation in the wilderness, which I think illustrates kind of in a nutshell what we're saying. So you remember Satan took, Jesus went into the wilderness and Satan met him there, and he had the, 3 times he was tempting Jesus to do things. And so if you follow the story, the first thing Satan says, is if you're the Son of God, turn these, stones into bread. And it's really interesting if you read like Ellen White stuff. Satan didn't show up as Satan. Lucifer didn't show up as Lucifer. He showed up as an angel from heaven, sent from God to come talk to Jesus. And so it's interesting because I see these when it's done in like different plays and stuff. I see, and they always have the Satan character come out in either the red suit with a pitchfork, or he's in all black and evil, and looks demonic. And I'm like, this is not how Lucifer would do this. This is not how Satan would operate. He deceives, he lies. And so he comes to Jesus as an angel of light, and he says, God has been pleased, and and you've done everything, and everything's wonderful, and all you need to do is turn these rocks into bread to prove to me you're who you say you are, and we all go to home to heaven happy. And that was it. And it was a very, very subtle deception that was giving Jesus a way out of not having to go to the cross. He was telling him, you don't have to go to the cross. Do this, we all go home, and that's all God needed from you. And
you just had to have a willing heart.
A willing heart. You have to be willing to go to the cross. And Jesus saw through this because, Lucifer said, if you're the Son of God. And of course, if you remember where Jesus was just before the Holy Spirit took him into the wilderness, which is a good point too. The Holy Spirit took Jesus into the wilderness for a reason. He had just been baptized, and the Holy Spirit came down and said, you heard the voice of God, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. So there was God's word telling him, this is my beloved Son. And then Satan was tempting him not to believe that. And that was what turning the rocks into bread would have been, well, I'm going to test God's word and see if I can prove it. And that's why Jesus said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God, back to his baptism. And so the next one, again, Satan's still the angel of light, says, that's very good. You passed the test, and seems kind of a weak, very, something you could see right through. But, and he says, throw yourself down, and the Bible says, God's word, he will protect you lest you dash your foot against a stone. And that was putting expectations on God's promise about protecting him, which we would say false expectations, because Satan was using that promise, or trying to get Jesus to use that promise for something it was not intended for. And it's more like, well, this is not what Jesus said, but he could have said. He's like, well, I'll tell you what, if you push me off, then yeah, that's what that promise is for. For me to jump off just to prove it's true is not what that promise is for. And so then again, he did not give in to Satan's temptation of a false expectation of a fulfillment of God's promise. He was trying to get him to use it for something it was not meant for. And then of course in 30 drops all pretense. Okay, you got me, it's me, and I'll tell you what, if you do this, then I won't do the rest, and we can end it. And that's when Jesus says, all right, yes, I knew it was you the whole time, so go away now. But that was the idea of a false expectation, especially putting a false expectation on God and God's promises. Instead of the expectation, Jesus held to what was true, the communicated truth of God's promises, God's word. That's what he held on to, not placing unrealistic or false expectations on those things. And so to avoid the premeditated disappointments, we say, communicate your needs and stick to and live in the truth, not the expectation, not the hyperbole, not everything else. What is true? What is God's word to me? What is God's promise to me? That's what I can live on. That's what I can stand on. And that's what I won't be disappointed or have false expectations in, if I'm using God's Word for what He gives it for, and standing on the truth of it. I don't feel like I explained it very well, but that was my shot at it. But yeah.
Right. Yes. Well, basically, Satan uses that sparkly mirage to cover up, his lie.
Yes.
Which is nothing but the sand of the desert that hasn't gotten rain for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So, if we could see it for what it really was, and eventually we will. Like if we continue to live those lies, at least you can recognize that it's a pretty rocky ground behind that.
Yeah.
Because we do receive the results. I mean, frozen CO2 is still frozen CO2. When it evaporates, it is now vapor rather than water. Unlike an ice cube, when it reaches a certain temperature, it just melts in the water. So the truth is a truth. It will always reveal itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so that's pretty much the challenge to apply that to everybody and everything in your life is what is true, what is real.
Right, and that's one thing, like the more time we spend with God, like Jesus had spent eternity with his Father. He had to know that. Plus, on earth, he spent a lot of time with his Father as well. So he recognized truth.
Yeah.
And we too, the more time we spend with our Father in heaven, the more clearly we can recognize his truth.
Yeah. And that's pretty much the key. Yeah. If all else fails and you don't know what else to do, always fall back to the more time I spend with God, the more grounded in the truth, the more he will reveal to me, the more life will be in the direction I need to go.
Right, and that's the truth that he expects us to live, is what he has revealed to us, just like Jesus there with the woman at the well. He only expected her to give him water because that was all that was realistically to ask that she could give him. And so Jesus gives us truth, and whether it's one truth, two truths, that's what he expects us to live out.
Yeah, and God will never ask you to do something you can't do, or that he can't equip you to do.
Yeah, he can definitely do that.
Yeah.
That's where he comes in with the Holy Spirit and changes us.
So I don't know where we'll be next. I'm pretty much going to be home next Sabbath, so we should be broadcasting the same. Aspen's shaking her head no. Oh, okay. So we should be back in Lincoln, Nebraska next weekend, broadcasting from home again. But thanks for joining us again. And it has been a little bare bone this last 2 weeks since we've been out and on the road and stuff, so we haven't done all of our different sections, but hopefully we'll get back to normal next weekend. So have a great rest of your Sabbath day. Enjoy life, and we'll see you next Sabbath.